So now I'm done with rendering in Lumion, and this is the image I got. So what I normally do when I render an image, if I don't like the lighting or certain things I don't like, I quickly come to post process it in Photoshop. So the first thing you see here, I quickly sorted out was like the brightness. Added in a bit of contrast, reduce the brightness to sort of balance out the image and make sure it starts coming to a point of some sort of realism. Remember, I'm not an absolute visualizer, just creating shortcuts to doing a little bit of a good work, a little bit of some good work. So handling the levels, sort of darkening the tones, because this was a very bright image, but it had everything I just wanted out of it. So sort of introduce the darker tones into the levels to just make sure it has a sense of realism in terms of coloring and everything. Then the vibrance, which is sort of the colors, I wanted to play around with them as well to see how best they can work and come together, because sometimes an image can be too bright or can be too light. Now you want to be able to, so if you maybe want to add a little bit of life and character, you want to add people, make sure you've downloaded very high res looking people, because there's different people I've been collecting over the years. I have like this almost 10 gig folder of people. So I've called it Photoshop resources, people, backgrounds, animals, and stuff like that. So I open my Photoshop PNGs and I have a folder called black people. You have no idea how difficult it is sometimes to get black people, because most of the cutouts that are there are really mainly white people, all other types of ethnicities. So this is sort of gold to me that I have a whole folder dedicated to black people, because mainly I'm rendering for environments with black people. So you want to be able to place that in 3D when you're putting people. The two things that are very important when you're putting people, three things, is the shadows, where the light is coming from, and you want to be careful with that in terms of lighting. And then the shadows, people always have to cast shadows somewhere, somehow. I've seen a lot of post visualized things that have people without shadows, and I'm there like, this is just terrible. But if there's someone who loves it, hey, it works, we move on with life. Then the other thing that's quite important is your scaling. So you're able to use dimensions of your building that like my garage door there is 2.1. But the other thing is, the further the person is away from that, you need to take considerations of how perspective works, like 3-point perspective, how it generally works, or 2-point, whichever perspective you use when you're rendering. So you want to be able to manipulate that. So this is post-processing work. This guy is part of his legs has to be cut off, because you'll be seeing the hedge first before the person. So I'm able to quickly sort that out here. Make sure you've rasterized him, that layer, before you cut it out. So there it is. When you pull out, you're able to see that it looks fair enough. Right, once you're done with all or most of your post-processing works, and possibly have even put in your logos, there's one thing that's very important, is to make sure the mood and tone of your color is set up right, because this is more like photography. So I will look at it in a savanna type of climate, and things are mostly warm. When you get a picture, the atmosphere is mainly like a warm looking atmosphere. So you put in an orange overlay over there and overlay it, and then you reduce the tone, and then you can sort of hide that layer and open it again to see the difference. So you'll be able to see general difference. So you see, when you hide it, there's a bit of coldness to it. When you bring it on, there's a warmth to it, and a sense of realism, real colors, real tones, real textures you get to see, even with atmospheric pollutions in the air that get to give you like the visual input you see with your eye. So all these tiny little things are very important, but remember, they're quick short hacks for you to get an almost realism. So now, after putting in people and making sure they have shadows, this is what you get. So I'm just going to show you quickly, maybe on those I haven't put in shadows, how you can quickly put shadows. Make sure, because the angle of the sun, the people work with the angle of the sun and the brightness you have there. So now I'm going to create shadows. You first create a copy of these people that I've added in here. And then after you put them in, make sure you rasterize all of this before doing it. So now I've created a copy. Make sure it's behind the main image you'll be working with. Then you overlay color into this black, make it like a solid black. Then you start working around the opacity, then adjust it and distort it to make sure it's a real shadow working on the ground, based on the angle, because you're able to see the angle of the sun from the other shadows, so you're able to have an idea of how much you should distribute the shadow to still remain in the sense of realism you have around. So now what you want to do is you apply that, then you reduce opacity, because in as much as the shadow casts over materials, you're still able to see the texture and tones and partially the colors of the material. Then now the shadow shouldn't be sharp, so you add in a Gaussian blur under the filter, under the blur options of the filters. Add in a Gaussian blur so the edges are not sharp, they're a bit blurry, which is what you want, because shadows in reality are not as sharp. They have a sort of blur to them, so the Gaussian blur tool works perfectly there. So you keep adjusting that, you keep adjusting the opacity until you get really what you'd want in terms of the image.